there, this is the final video in the portfolio video series. This is D, which is about portfolio scoring. All of your other videos so far have been about what you do before you get your portfolio to us, and this one really is a little bit more about what happens after you turn your portfolio in, although it can be used as a resource prior to that. The resource itself is located in the portfolio's overview. The portfolio scoring guide is the item that you're looking for, and you'll see it come up here. All right. The portfolio scoring guide is how we essentially judge your portfolio at the end of the semester. And the first thing to be aware of is you can look at the portfolio scoring guide and see that it's made up at the highest possible score is a 6, and it goes down, of course, to a 0. Okay, and a 0 happens most frequently when a student doesn't meet the page length requirement for the portfolio submission. We're really strict about the 14 pages, and so if folks fall short of that, your portfolio won't be scored. So it's really important for you to consider this. In order to even get to this point, of course, you've had a 70% in the class prior to coming into the portfolio, and so that's the requirement up to this point. As long as you have a 70% in the class before the portfolio, you will be able to submit your portfolio. And whether you pass your portfolio, which means you'll pass English 104 and complete that requirement, or if you don't pass your portfolio, which means that you will get a RP, or report in progress, in English 104, and then you'll need to enroll in English 200 the next semester in order to complete your requirement. But getting your portfolio submission means one thing, which is that you will not be repeating English 104 again. Okay, so this will be your last chance, or your last time with that. The guide itself, I think, is relatively straightforward. These are terms that we've talked about all semester long and that appear in the response letters guidelines for you, that we talk about in writers' toolboxes, that we talk about when you come to conferences with me, talking about organizing and developing, and it talks about audience, and it talks about complexity and clarity. Okay, all these things are what we've been focusing on during the semester. And if you look at the items, and even looking at, for instance, number 6, 5, and 4, which are on the front of the guide, and I'm going to look at the first bullet. A 6 portfolio shows clarity, depth, and complexity of thought. When we get to a 5, it shows clarity of thought with some depth or complexity. And then a 4 says it shows clarity of thought but may show less evidence of depth or complexity. Okay, so you'll see that we're really working on a scale or a spectrum, with 6 being the highest and best performance in those areas, and then going down through the levels. And every bullet has that corresponding scale or spectrum when you look at it, and that's an important consideration. The first thing to know is that everything on the front of this scoring guide, a 6, 5, or 4, is a passing portfolio score. Okay, and so that's really an important consideration. So you're looking at this language on here will help you identify how you're doing. What are the priorities for you to focus on in revising and preparing your portfolio for submission? The second page of the scoring guide begins with the lower range portfolios, and these again are not passing portfolios. If you receive scores within this area, you will have to take English 200 next semester in order to revise your portfolio and resubmit it to the committee. Okay, and if that happens, we'll talk more about that. The bottom of the guide actually tells you a little bit, a peek behind the scenes of how the scoring happens on our end. What happens is that I'm your first reader of your portfolio. You'll submit your portfolio to me, I'm going to read and give it a score. And I give it the whole thing a score. I don't score individual essays or the cover letter or anything separately. I actually read everything and then give it a score based on this criteria. I'll enter my reader number and my score here, and then I will turn it in, and we spend an entire day during the last week of classes as a group reading other portfolios. So we submit them all, they all get turned in, and there's hundreds of them, and a dozen or so, or maybe 2 dozen of us meet And they're all people who are teaching English 104 or 103, which is the end of the 2-semester sequence, or English 200 for people who are resubmitting their portfolio. So any instructor who's teaching those classes this semester is on this portfolio committee. We all get together, we read other portfolios, and as the second reader, I give other scores to the portfolio. The important thing here is that a second person will read your portfolio, and they'll give it a score. Assuming that we score it the same, maybe I thought your portfolio was a 5, and the other reader thought your portfolio was a 5. Your portfolio score is a 10, then. It's a combined total of 2 5s. It also is true if I thought it was a 5, but the second person who read it didn't think it was quite as strong and gave it a 4, your portfolio score would be a 9, and that would be your score as well. So that would be a passing score. You basically have to have 8 to pass, 2 4s. Okay. If a person gave the portfolio, maybe I scored it a 4, and then somebody read your portfolio and just thought it was fantastic and gave it a 6, it would actually go to a third reader because we had more than 1 point difference. So you'll see on that scoring guide at the end that a third reader would be needed in that case because we had a difference of opinion that was relatively significant. The other time it would go to a third reader would be in this case here where one of the readers gave you a 4, which is a passing score, and another reader gave you a 3, which is not a passing score. Because of the difference, I mean, that's a really important decision because the portfolio determines whether you will pass the class or not. And so this will also, if there's a 7, essentially a 4 and a 3 score, that will be read by a third reader to make that decision final, whether it's an 8 portfolio or whether it's a 6 portfolio in that case. So the scoring happens on the last week of classes, and on Monday of finals week, I'll have your portfolio scores and your grades posted to Moodle by that point in time. The scoring guide is available, and you can also use it. I'm going to be posting some sample portfolios for you to look at, and that's the 5th item on the portfolios overview. They haven't been loaded yet, but they will be soon. You'll see sample portfolios. And what I'm going to do is post one that's a 12, which is 2 6s, one that's a 10, 2 5s, one that's an 8, which is 2 4s, and one that's a 6, so it received 2 3s. So from the highest to the lowest, and the 6 or 2 3s being not passing and the rest being passing portfolios. What I would encourage you to do is to read those portfolios and then take a close look at the scoring guide and see for yourself why do you think those portfolios got those scores? And that will help you have a good understanding of what your portfolio should look like in order for you to meet the criteria and what you're shooting for as your score as well. If you have questions about the scoring or about the portfolio overall, please stop by my open office hours in weeks 14 and 15 to talk to me about it, or send me a quick email. I'm always happy to hear from you and help out however I can. Take care and keep working hard.